people to another edition of this week's episode of the Final Whistle. If you've watched any sports, you know there's a whole bunch of news to cover. There was finally a weekend of no stress and no anger as the Stinky Browns, as we like to call them, um, they got put in the Super Bowl this week, and that's our bye week. That's about as good as it gets here in Cleveland. I am Mark. That is Kyle. Kyle, how are we doing on this lovely bye week without any anxiety?
Hi, I'm doing great. It's been an interesting weekend as with the sports and all that. As you know, Mark, we've talked about sports wise and personal wise, but here we are. We're here to go. We are ready for another show, episode number 15, right? 15 of the show already. Can't believe it. As or no, 14, 14. Sorry, got ahead of myself. So we are very excited to be here with you all this weekend. As we do have some news. We're gonna jump right into it. We're recording early on a Monday, so we're excited to get it to. We're gonna get started with. We have breaking news that came out Sunday as Auburn has fired their coach Hugh Freeze as he is in the school parted ways after a couple years. And Mark, I went. This is kind of expected. You lose to Kentucky, only kick a field goal, and now that's another team in the SEC. How about that? Half the firings almost pretty much seem like they're the SEC, and now you look and Auburn's opened up. Who knows? Who knows who goes there now after this one opens up?
Yeah, I completely agree. I know there was some talk about it this weekend between us and some buddies of ours, but I mean, I truly think that the SEC is trying to catch back up. I think now that you're kind of seeing college football at a much more even landscape across the board when it comes to teams. The SEC, they still are stuck in this situation where they think they're supposed to be or have to be like an almighty conference, and that means all the teams in that conference fall through into that. Auburn, I honestly was actually surprised by the fire. I know Auburn's been kind of up and down, but I feel like they overperformed this year at times. They had a couple of good wins. I know they had some bad losses as well, but I figured Freeze might get another year based off the fact that Auburn schedule is never going to be easy, and you really don't want to go in to the Iron Bowl at the end of the year with basically an interim head coach or looking
Right.
for a head coach, um, which is something that'll be interesting. But I mean, kind of as you said, Kyle, there's a lot of SEC schools available, and the whole talk is SEC NIL pools need money. They need money because they can't compete with Big Ten money. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this next coaching cycle. Are we going to see a bunch of recycled coaches just flip flopping teams, or will we see something different at the Auburns, at the Penn States of the world, at the LSU's of the world, where they're just all flip flopping, or will we see some like some new young blood that will be able to revive and research some of these programs?
Yeah, and this is probably not the final SEC coaching fire in Kentucky's probably we would think going to fire the coach. There's been rumblings about that. South Carolina, we don't know what his their coach is going to do, as his dad coached at Virginia Tech, who has an opening, but there's another favorite for that, so it's wide open in the SEC right now, and especially there's also a Big Ten opening probably coming to Wisconsin, we would think, but we just never know. But yeah, it's very interesting. Like Mark said, you go off, it's kind of not expected, but at the same time, you're only scoring 3 points against Kentucky, and the score was literally 10-3. So you got to think, okay, he's not doing it. This man, Mark, I know Mark knows, but for the fans or fans that tune in to the show, not regular sports fans, this dude Hugh Freeze coached from a hospital bed literally a couple years ago when he was sick. I believe it was maybe
Yep.
during COVID or the year after or before COVID. Or he literally didn't want to miss the game, so he coached from the press box in a hospital bed, which was bizarre. First time ever for it must be a first time for everything. But yeah, so that was kind of interesting. But yeah, Auburn's Auburn's a program you don't want to mess with when it comes to NIL. But at the same time, you just got to figure it out because, like you said, Alabama, their biggest rival, the Iron Bowl, and I found something interesting that it hasn't been the same coach for any team the past couple of years. I was reading that stat the other day. It's been DeBoer, and then luckily Freeze has been around for a couple of years, but it was DeBoer this year and last year, and then they had Saban and Freeze. So it's not really had this mystical rivalry mark between these two where they have the same coach, like Michigan Ohio State's now getting more in Day each and every year, or Harbaugh and Day. So it's kind of interesting at this point. But yeah, Auburn is got they were look where they were a couple years ago, almost a decade ago. They were a powerhouse, going Cam Newton playing for
Yeah.
championships against Florida State in the Rose Bowl, and now they're not even sniffing that right now. They're probably for another year or two, unless they get a good coach that could turn them around the first year. But yeah, for Auburn, it's kind of you expect them to be a player, but at the same time, you got the Texas and Oklahoma's coming in that kind of wipes like a I don't know what's the word I'm looking for? A not a regular, but I don't know the word, but a team that's been in the SEC for a while, and now they're
Yeah.
probably not going to sniff the playoffs or because of what they have. And I think that kind of hurts if you ask me, Mark, with Auburn, because you got to bring these teams in, and you want they're more you don't, and you see the bottom of the barrel SEC teams now, like in Auburn or Kentucky, South Carolina, they're not going to get in because of what they brought in.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. Not only are they not going to get in, but I mean, when it comes to the big time conference flip flops all over the place and things like that, um, I mean, you're looking at Oklahoma, Texas now. You're in SEC country over there, and they have big high school recruiting pools. So I mean, this next Auburn coach and some of these next coaches in general,
Yeah.
are really going to have to push this transfer portal again. Um, and it's a gift and a curse, I think, all in one. We'll see what happens, but I mean, I think there's a clear split now in the SEC of your upper echelon SEC teams and then everyone else.
Yeah, and we'll see because hey, it's been the third or fourth straight Saturday we've had a coach firing, and I don't think we're done yet. I think we got a long way to go with that because there is some other teams that are probably going to be looking for a new coach come December when the season is finally over. So it'll be very interesting to see as it opens up. So Auburn, yeah, tough road ahead for them. We'll see. Maybe they get like we say, get a new coach that turns it around. But we will keep an eye on that as long as the other as long along with all the other coach firings. But Mark, what a freaking weekend it was in the college landscape. Two huge upsets we are going to get into that kind of shaking up the college football playoff rank rate. Well, if you count three, and that's Mark's, and we do have the rankings coming out in a couple literally after this is being released. So we will give our thoughts Sunday on the overtime show. We're hopefully the debut this week, this Sunday coming up. So we'll give our thoughts on that. But let's start as we always do because as you know, Mark, the week's coming, and right now there's everything on the line. And folks, you're going to see probably from here on out, you're going to see the little. I can say it on here because we're not being streamed where we get flagged for it. There's going to be a lot more hate coming out each and every week till we lead up to this week. You're going to see it coming. So little by little, there's going to be a little more hate towards not towards each other, not towards each other, but in a playful way when it comes to the rivalry. But as Mark gets out of his chair here, is goodbye, Mark. Keep him. We gotta keep it moving. How you doing? But he's getting up, bringing that belt because he knows it's coming. But OSU defeats Penn State 38-14. As we were talking, Mark, I think LNC be too concerned, but there was a little bit of weakness as Penn State kind of exploited. You have a lot on tape. You have or some on tape to show Michigan offense stepped up in the second half, but defense showed they got maybe some loopholes that there maybe teams are might figure out, especially Michigan when they get there.
Yeah, I do not disagree. The one bad thing I think we found in this game, in the first half, was the idea that I think the weakness of the interior D line showed this week just a little bit. Penn State ran really well between the tackles, and once we made adjustments, we were able to shut that down, and eventually your best defense is a really good offense, and I think you saw that on display. Where I mean, teams are going to have to find a way to catch up to you, but in the close game, I do think Ohio State being the fact that a couple of different things. I think being the fact that they knew that Penn State was coming in struggling the way that they have and didn't have a true head coach as of right now. I think they kind of overlooked them, especially being at home as well. So I think that played part of the factor in the first half. And Penn State, to their credit, they came in fighting. They had
They
two
did.
really good drives where they completely just pretty much went the length of the field. Now there was a Donaldson fumble in there that might have and probably changes the game and ends that a little earlier. But hindsight is always 2020 there. But as far as the defense goes, after halftime, they made their adjustments. I think
Hmm.
Ryan Day kind of did what Ryan Day hasn't normally done outside of these last couple of years. And he lit a fire under those guys to let them understand, like, not only is this the first set of rankings, but what are people going to say if this is a close game when this is supposed to be now one of your only tests left, and it's not really a test either. I think eventually, obviously, they kind of got it together, and you see the defense on display. I think, quite honestly, when it comes
Hmm.
to the Ohio State defense, anybody that's going to have to pass the ball against them is going to have a really tough time. But that's going to be the key is to get them into passing situations because the secondary and those linebackers are just so good. Um, Sayin looked great. All of a sudden now he is a Heisman front runner. Obviously, there is some recency bias there. As an objective fan, I can say that with a couple players not playing this week, and I think with the lore of Ohio State, Penn State, that also helps that quote unquote Heisman finalist situation. I don't really, well, while I like how Saints starting to play, and I like how the offense is looking, where we're opening up the playbook. You're letting the kid push the ball downfield to these great receivers. I do think the receivers that he has with him hurt him. Eventually, when it comes to specifically that Heisman race,
Hmm.
because they're going to look at it and say, well, you have potentially two receivers that uh, could have won the Heisman if they're basically not receivers, or if you got them the ball more. So I mean, I thought they looked good. The offense looked good. Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith are easily the two best receivers in the country, and I don't think it's close anymore. You could have thrown Jordan Tyson in there from Arizona State, but I think at this point in time, they're showing that the best two players on the field at any given time are in the scarlet and gray, and they're both that receiver wearing number 4, number 17. And anybody who tries to cover them is going to have a hell of a time on their hands because now you're basically having to try to bracket two players with other 5 stars running around in the middle of the field.
Yeah, and you gotta give Penn State credit. They battled, especially in the first half. They kept it close. They got that quarterback. That freshman quarterback showed some flashes as he's a Ohio native, a Columbus native, and he's played
Yeah,
okay the first half. He's just got to work on his throwing's kind of off, but that's when he was being pressured and trying to hit his guys. So, but no, Penn State they looked okay. As far as we'll see what the running back situation looks like next year because both of them are probably on their way out the door one way or another. But they got some good receivers, and that coach he played with
I
nothing to
believe they're
lose.
both seniors actually.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I believe that their coach. I like their coach played with nothing to lose. He played with nothing to lose. He gave it all they got, and I like that coach. Will he get the job? Probably not. They'll probably go to another big experienced coach. But as long as they keep him around, because he was a receivers coach, he is an alumni. He knew what it meant to play in that game. So I think they played well. As for Ohio State, yeah, they showed some. They opened up the playbook. And now it's going to be can they get over that Michigan hump? Because past 4 years, Ohio State's been favored to win, and Michigan's kind of dominated. So, and I will say the running game's got to get going a little bit. As without the Peoples and Donaldson, I don't think you play him a lot down the stretch because you got to have play Bo. I think you got to play what's the backup's name? Not Everston or what's his name? Jackson's backup.
Well, Donaldson plays backup. He's more goal line back than anything.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's going to be mainly Bo Jackson, and I think the offensive line is going to have to really figure it out.
yeah,
I mean, I believe Bo ended up with 100 yards again towards the end of that game to close it out. But they do have to get the running game going early. You don't want to put it all on Sand right away while he's gaining more and more confidence. You got to be able to, I think, get your defense some rest when it comes to scoring. I mean, you're seeing the speed on the outside each and
right.
every week. I mean, they're just blowing past double teams with ease. We're throwing bombs all over the place. That's while it's good on offense, it also makes it hard on the defense. The defense it's similar to a turnover, just with a little bit more adrenaline, quite honestly. So when it comes to that, I think at the end of the day, we do have to get the running game going. It's going to be Bo Jackson and Donaldson. Peoples for whatever reason has kind of just fallen off the map, and I think he's
Yeah,
subject to basically a freshman coming in that is pretty much electric in a third down back. The only thing he struggles with is those goal line carries, but that's why you bring a guy like Donaldson in for tough yards, who's experienced in a bit of a bigger back. But I definitely do agree. I think going into the first or into the second half, our main running back only had 54 yards, 50 yards, something like that, and Donaldson had that fumble near the in the red zone. So the running game has to certainly catch up. That's for sure.
Yeah, and whoever's won the rushing battle between Ohio State and Michigan has won that game. So that's very very interesting to see. And one thing I did see, as Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but a little bit under pressure. Saying looked he just looked lost. He couldn't get the ball out in time. So I think that's one thing Michigan kind of favors Michigan a little bit. A little deep dive. Obviously, going to deep dive in this game during this week, but. If when you saw a little bit, when he's under pressure, he kind of makes questionable throws. He kind of throws it, and he just kind of throws it out there and hoping one of his guys catches it. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they play, how he deals with pressure because pressure. I mean, all quarterbacks face pressure, but when you have that, you have the receivers and you're not facing less competition. Now the competition is going to start wrapping up. Can he sustain that pressure from the pocket, roll out, make a play, which he did? As Penn State missed a couple tackles in the backfield, a couple drives that could have changed him up. That maybe changed momentum like first half, second or third quarter at that point. But so we'll see. But Penn State's got a little bit of some talent. Hopefully they stick together because they got a young team. Now it's funny as Penn State as they have these protected rivalries for non-sports fans. As with the expansion, they have these protected rivalries. So Ohio State was protecting Michigan. They picked one more to protect, not sure, but Michigan protected Michigan State and Ohio State. Penn State did not want to protect Ohio State to play them every year. So I think that's maybe don't know if that's just the state of the program. Why Franklin didn't want to do it, but so now they're not protected. They won't see him until 2028 at the earliest, maybe if they fall into the playoff or the Big Ten title game. So,
Yep.
as Ohio State has this win for 3 years over Penn State, so we'll see how that goes. As Ohio State plays Purdue, I'm not gonna really get into that. Should roll them in Purdue and move on to next week. So, not really much to talk about for that one. All right, we move on. Michigan and Purdue. That was a slugfest defensive battle as Michigan won 21-16. Underwood, he had a fully freshman game as he's had shown signs that, he's a freshman. And Mark, Michigan was out their top running back, their top wide receiver, their three top running or linebackers. And give credit to Michigan. Jordan Marshall, 3 touchdowns. And give Purdue some credit. They showed some fight, but Michigan hung on and it still has all their goals in front of them. But I don't know if Underwood showed his freshman game. Hopefully, it was just one of those games where you just kind of get through it with the bye and move on to Northwestern next week.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he was also subject to a bit of injury situations. I mean, you have Marsh who didn't really get going. It seemed like the playbook wasn't really adequate for him to really succeed outside of either he was running the ball or Marshall running the ball.
Right.
It seemed just a very run centric game plan last week, which it did work out. I mean, Marshall ends up with 185, 3 tubs at a 7.5 carry clip. Um, but at the same time, I think the lack of weapons in a game like this, um, where they're going to make that running game beat you regardless,
Yeah.
does end up showing. Because that's going to be the one thing is everyone is going to be able to crowd that box, and then it's going to be can your weapons beat what's on the outside, and nobody's going to believe that until shown otherwise. I mean, Samaj Morgan, I believe he didn't play this
Six.
game if I'm not mistaken.
He played like
Um,
5 snaps. He played like 10 snaps at that.
Yeah, so and he's supposed to be your number one. Donovan McCulley, who was a former quarterback at Indiana, switched to wide receiver. He again had 1 reception. I
Yeah, he had
mean, you
another.
have Andrew Marsh ended up with 4 receptions, but other than that, he didn't end up doing much. And then you got Marshall with a 25-yard catch as well. So it seems as though the game plan is kind of working against what would be quarterback friendly. I think they're trying to use the JJ McCarthy mold with a quarterback with a lot more lively of an arm and maybe not as cerebral. Um, not and I'm not that's not to say that Bryce can't read a defense the way that JJ can or anything else, but JJ didn't have the athletic attributes that Bryce Underwood ends up carrying into each and every game. So he had to use a lot more mind games, understanding the playbook, understanding certain audibles, etc. And you're basically trying to put that into a freshman kid that right now, as he learns the system, as he learns the world of college football, he's relying on his athleticism, and they're not really putting him in the positions to win. But he is also backed, and he also has a safety net of this run game, which Marshall's been on a tear, and before that, Haynes was on a tear, and I know he's going to be out for a little while. But I mean, this
Yes.
two-headed monster running back has saved them um, time and time again, and that unfortunately is what their offensive line has been built for as well. Is built for a strong downhill run game as opposed to a pass pro type of a game. So you kind of you're kind of in that middle passage here, I think, where you're trying to shape your offense now and your team around a quarterback, but you just have to give it some time based off of recruits and transfer portal situations that are coming to fruition.
Yeah, and they got they're supposed to be flipping a 2026 defensive back, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Marsh Haynes is out. He might come back for the Ohio State game. He had a little foot injury. Going to get surgery. I think he got surgery this week, so we'll see if he comes back. But it's very, very interesting. And I think you're not going to really see much. The game, both for Michigan and Ohio State, these game plans could be very vanilla. As vanilla, if you're not a sports fan, as you try to break it down for you, means it's going to be a boring game from here on out. The next three games, very boring. You're not going to see a lot. You might see some flashes, but especially the week before. Michigan's going to try to run the ball. Ohio State's not going to throw the ball as much. They're going to counter to be the little dink and dunk passes because that they're keeping it, and they do this the whole season. They show flashes, and when you get close, they don't show anything. And then fans get mad. Oh, why the score might be a little close at times, but yeah, because they're saving it for that big. They're letting it all out there because they know that game means a lot, and they want to win, especially for Ohio State this year, trying to avoid the 5 streak and get to the Big Ten title game. Because if things fall into place, Mark, which so far it has, still a long way to go, the Michigan Ohio State could be for the Big Ten title game, but we'll see. A lot of things still have to fall in place for it to mean that much to Michigan, but we'll see on that. But Michigan's got to stop being. Jim Harbaugh's gone. Harbaugh's gone. More, just be your own guy. Let the train wheels off. And if he makes a mistake, this is when he learns from it. And fans, you can't get upset about it. We know a couple fans that get upset about it, but you got to let him go. You got to let him learn on the job. If you're starting him, paying all that, let him learn. He throws an interception. He threw an interception. All right, let's learn from it. What did you do? Because the one interception, he had a guy he had Macaulay wide open in the end zone. Wide open in the end zone. It was like late second quarter, I think, or early third or second. But he's you gotta have that mistake. He's getting happy feet. The protection's still not there a little bit, but he's got time. He's got 2 games to get right before the big one. So, and I found a funny stat here as Bryce Underwood he has less than 100 yards almost in all his night games he's played. If you could believe that, but compared to noon and day games, he has over 100 yards, and whereas all his touchdowns have came from. So he plays better during the day for right now. So we'll see. As at least this Northwestern is at noon, Ohio State at noon. We'll see what Maryland is. We assume that would probably be day, so everybody can heal up. But they gotta get healthy too. They got a bye week this week. They gotta
Yep.
get some guys back. They gotta get, and I think they will. I think they'll get a couple guys back, and hopefully they were just stingers for some of the guys. But we'll see. Big one's coming, but we get the bye, and we get the Northwestern next week. So we'll be kind of low profile for that for next week's show on those two. All right, we're gonna move on to the bigger stories now of the weekend as Miami falls again. They fall to SMU 26-20 in overtime. And folks, if you're looking at the CFP rankings that have come out before this has been released, we don't know where Miami's going to be. Miami might not even be in the top 12 by the time this show gets released. Mark, back again at those 2 interceptions. SMU comes back after an emotional loss the earlier week before. Now Miami, all their goals are gone pretty much. You can't win the ACC. You got your log jam there. CFP are going to need a lot of help, so they're pretty much Mark on the outside looking in, and maybe might miss out again. And all that money, all that goals gone. They poofed up in smoke.
Yeah, I don't. They paid all that money for 2 years in a row for a transfer quarterback. This one was even worse than last year. I really like Cam Ward as a player. I just don't think their defense was up to par to get them where they needed to go. This year, they seemed to be playing better football, but Carson Beck's going to do what Carson Beck does in the biggest games or when you least expect it as well. He has a tendency to turn into this just erratic, crazy player where he just has no idea how to read a defense. He takes risks that don't need to be taken. He throws bad balls all over the place. I don't understand where it comes from. Like he just goes haywire at some points in time and literally throws the game away. And when it comes to that, I expected it from him. I didn't know when it was going to come, but it comes against an SMU team that we called late last week is a very sneaky team and not someone that you can mess around with as Miami because they've
One
been
loss,
around
one loss.
as a program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean this they and they've been up there as a program. They're in the upper echelon of their conference. But it just goes to show you how crazy the ACC is, kind of as a whole this year. Every time some team starts to take that leap or starts to take that bigger step forward, it seems like they falter in the next one. It's like crabs in a barrel. Um, but not in a good way either. It's not like they're all beating each other. It's they're just stumbling and then getting pulled down by the next ACC team that seems to be on the rise just for them to stumble as well. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And who would have thought we got Miami or Virginia's up there, Georgia Tech's up there, or yeah, Georgia Tech's up there, Louisville's up there. Miami is literally they needed help to get in before, or they needed help before this loss. Now you really need help. You're pretty much out of the ACC running. You're pretty much out of everything. CFP, you're probably gonna have to win out to get in. You lose one more, you're done. You're playing in a regular bowl game somewhere that means nothing. So it's going to be very interesting. SMU is still alive. They got some games in hand to take care of, but it's very interesting because SMU lost on a heartbreaker the week before to Wake Forest by a field goal, literally inches. If you go back watch the replay, literally inches from not making it, but it made it. So SMU is still alive, and to come into an ACC conference where SMU was the American, and then I forgot where they were before the American, but to come into the ACC and only have one loss, mark, that is incredible. Like a team like that, you wouldn't even think to go undefeated last year and only get this one loss. Like that's nuts. Like who would have thought SMU and they just signed their coaching extension literally hours or a day before the game comes in, does that. Hey, hats up to SMU too. They're playing very well and are here to stay in the ACC.
Yeah, I agree, and I love their quarterback. This Jenkins kid, I mean, he's almost thrown for 3,000 yards this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's throwing at a 66 completion percentage, which sounds bad, but for those of you that don't know football, that with almost 350 attempts, excuse me, 66% is really good. I mean, he's 18 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He's I believe he's more of a veteran quarterback, but I mean, he's playing good football right now. And SMU, ever since they've kind of it seems to have understood how good they can really be if they get into a more of what you would call a Power Five conference, even though it's kind of moving towards a Power Four.
Yep.
Like ever since they've made that jump, you can see that they're ready to compete and they're here to stay. And especially with the NIL and things like that, I think you have to remember they've got some money behind them. They've always been a sneaky good program, and now they're really starting to show some real true colors the past few seasons.
Yeah, and they beat Clemson last year in the ACC title game, and that kind of was very interesting. As we thought, okay, maybe it's just a fluke season, coming in. Nobody really knows about SMU. And now they're still running the table. They're 5-3 still, I believe. Now they're 6-3, but
Six
they
and
only have
three, yep.
three. They have one conference loss still, and hey, if they're gonna be a powerhouse, they were in a CFP loss to Penn State last year, but their hopes are alive, just like Louisville, Georgia Tech, and Virginia's. As so, Miami got work cut off for them. We'll find out. It'll be very interesting where the rankings committee puts them for the first CFP rankings on Tuesday, and we'll discuss them Sunday on our new overtime show over on TikTok and give us your thoughts there, even though the games will be played and so forth. But speaking of Georgia Tech, another ACC team that falls lost to NC State 48-36. And I didn't know this, Mark. This is NC State's second ranked win of the year. They beat Virginia, which is not was not a conference game. I don't know why it was not scheduled a conference game, I didn't get some with the yeah. I read that. That's where Virginia's loss came.
That's been happening a couple different places. I think I heard that as well.
Yeah, but I think it's more interesting because they trap or they're in the same conference. Nobody's moved conferences in that. But I can see like the other ones that were coming in at different conferences. Why they would be non like Arizona was Arizona and Kansas State. There's one team that in
Yeah.
the one game in the Big 12. It wasn't a conference game early in the year because of the team moving in. But yeah, NC State knocked up Georgia or Virginia and now Georgia Tech. They're 5-4. Obviously not going to go anywhere. Just probably a bowl game. But Georgia Tech falters, and this is what we talk about the cast of college football. We think we know. We think we know everything, and then we don't. Mark. Georgia, but luckily for Georgia Tech, their hopes are still alive. They still got everything in front of them. But one loss from them that could derail their season as well.
Yeah, I mean that defense was a no-show this week. Props to Haynes King. If you've ever watched a Georgia Tech game, he is pretty much their entire offensive scheme. He throws for 408 yards, runs for another 103, 500 all-purpose yards as a quarterback is pretty insane,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're talking about 25 passes and 20 carries. But as far as their defense goes, their defense did them no favors. They gave up 340 passing yards, and they almost gave up 200 rushing yards to NC State's running back. I think when it comes to this is a classic tale of going into conference games thinking you got a team beat, and then they come and they shock you based off of the fact that they have nothing to lose and they've seen you before. Um, I think Georgia Tech eventually they play very weird games where they're really not supposed to win or they're supposed to win but they should have been upset, etc., etc. I think it finally caught up to them. They played in the shootout, and their defense kind of just no showed on them. And when you have everything in front of you, and you're one of those only undefeated teams, you really don't want to take that kind of loss to an NC State team that really isn't going anywhere. That's not really the loss that you want,
Mm-hmm.
especially in that ACC, which is so weak, but they're still beating up on each other. But it goes to show you that each and every week, you can get beat if you're not on your A game.
And yeah, and if I'm telling you, Georgia Tech, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this once. You better pray, you better hope you have an ACC title game clinched before you play Georgia, because you're facing a second straight loss now or second straight, but second loss before you get to the ACC title game because they play rivalry weekend. So if you don't have that clinched, you might be in trouble going to Georgia, and Georgia might be a playing game. As you know, Georgia's going to be
Yep.
playing for. They might Georgia plays Texas next week, so they still might be. Georgia might be playing for an SEC title game, especially if Bama and A&M don't lose or one of them falters before championship weekend as because Texas still got to play A&M. So there's a lot to be decided still in the weeks to come. But if you're Georgia Tech, Mark, you better get that ACC title game clinched, knowing that if you lose to Georgia, you have one more shot to get in. Because if you don't, you might not even get in at that point because now you got Texas surging, you got other teams surging right behind you, knocking on the doorstep, and
Yep.
it might not be pretty for you. That loss stings for Georgia Tech.
I mean, yeah, they pretty much can't falter at this point because
Nope.
if we know one thing about the committee is they love the SEC, and that Georgia Tech game, especially with A&M and Bama playing the type of football that they're playing, if they were to run the table the rest of the year, then Georgia and Georgia Tech might be playing for that final one of these final spots in that playoff, and that's not something you want as a Georgia Tech team because
Yep.
Georgia's been there before, they've done that before.
Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting. And I'm trying to look up the schedule real quick for Georgia Tech. I want to see the rest of the schedule before Georgia, if I could pull that up. Oh, there we go. So they're ranked 16 right now. They got Boston College next week, so that should be a win. But it is college football, so you just never know. And then they got, let's see who else they got. Pitt. Pitt's not, and they got Pitt in Georgia. So Pitt's playing for a conference title because Pitt's right behind Georgia Tech. So that could be a, dude, Georgia Tech's not out of this.
It could be scary.
I will be, I'll be honest, I won't be surprised they lose to Pittsburgh. I won't be surprised they lose to
I
Pittsburgh.
wouldn't either. Pitt has a way to win these sneaky games.
And Pitt's got Notre Dame the week before or next week, so it's going to be a very interesting ACC race, folks. And this is what gets us excited. You have all these races coming out to the end. You have big games, as a lot of round robin games that this pretty much from here on out decide the who's getting in, who's getting left out. So it's very exciting if you're a sports fan. If you're not a football fan, this is when you start tuning in. You start tuning in starting Saturday, and even for the NFL, you just start tuning in because you're starting getting playoff pushes. The games could be start meaning more meaningful than what they were, say,
Yep.
2 or 3 weeks ago. So we're very excited because yeah, Pittsburgh's right there, Louisville's sitting right there, SMU's hanging around. So this is very an interesting race. We talked about the
It's a
SEC.
tight race.
That's a tight. All have one conference loss. Virginia's the only one with non-conference or a conference loss. I have to research why that game was not a conference game. We'll have to look at that. But yeah, Georgia Tech's not a woods. Pittsburgh before Georgia. Oh boy, Pittsburgh could be sitting pretty before that game. So we'll see. Georgia Tech, you got to win. That's all it's to it. Win, you're in. If not, it's going to be very. Might be. Maybe Georgia Tech coach goes somewhere after this, knowing that was probably his best shot to win.
Yep.
Maybe he goes
Could
into it
be.
for. So we'll see on that as Georgia Tech off before playing Boston College. Last game to review here in is Vandy loses to Texas 34-31. Is Mark Texas? Are they back? Are they all of a sudden are back? And now they have meaningful games down the stretch. Arch looked better than he did a couple weeks ago. Vandy was they just emotional letdown after last week after defeating Missouri. So, Mark, here we go. Vandy, well, they're playing for their lives now. They have 2 losses. They probably need help to get in at this point, unless, they go on another run because they got Tennessee looming. That's their rivalry game. But Texas, looking like everyone thought they were at the beginning of the season.
I mean, yeah, they've definitely played their way back. It's been a interesting road for them. I do think Vandy ended up being a victim of an emotional letdown. And I say that simply because you don't like when you see a team come off of a win like that, and then they come out sluggish, but they still make that late surge, that late push. That's usually the indicator of a good team that that took some time to wake up. They had to get off their high horse. I think they thought that Texas was a bit down and out, and they didn't end up being as down and out as they thought. They thought they were um, the team destined to be, and Arch finally figured it out. It seems like week after week, for about the last 3 4 weeks, he's gotten better. We'll see how they start to play down the stretch because they have not only had blunders, but that offense has looked pretty abysmal at times. And that defense can't win it all for them. So it'll be interesting to see down the stretch what Texas looks like. Seems like they are starting to build momentum, but as we just talked about with remaining schedules, Texas's remaining schedule is not easy at all. They still have to play an SEC schedule, and
Yup.
that's not something that you want to do when you're fighting for your life, especially as you're basically hoping that your offense continues to build momentum. You're basically trying to build momentum against some immovable objects, and that's going to be more than what an uphill battle is.
They got Georgia coming up the next week at Georgia, and then A&M as rivalry week. So they're not out of the woods yet. And then this is gonna luckily they got A&M at home, so that helps if they can get by Georgia. Because looking at the standings now, that takes Georgia out of the equation. Now they got Ole Miss is in front of them still because of the overall record. So I don't know. It's be very interesting to see, especially if Texas A&M doesn't falter. This would be a very interesting race. As yeah, Texas Arch Manning looked different. Was it maybe the concussion that kind of spooked him? That maybe knocked some sense into him. We don't know, but it's very interesting. It's very interesting to see as they were literally left for dead against Mississippi State. Come back from like a double-digit deficit. Don't know how the hell they do that.
Yep.
And they maybe that was the turning point of their season. Do they get in the playoffs?
I
They
was
got
just
two.
about to say, I mean, think about what we just talked about with Alex. That's one of those things that
Well, talked with that.
can really turn turn your season, turn your program around as a win like that where you show heart, you show guts, and I mean you come together as a unit, and I think you just seen that now they got two under their belt, two good ones and two SEC wins under their belt with a top 10 win. It'll be exciting to see what their push looks like the last couple weeks.
Yeah, and Vandy, unfortunately, they need really some big help to get in, as they'll probably be on the outside looking in. Um, this once the rankings come out Tuesday night, and no, it could be like the Fighting Snetties and just start pushing over teams and all that. No one could have the Cinderella story as Indiana still has. So, but yeah, so Vandy needs help. Texas has everything in front of them still. The standings also say they need another Old Miss loss and probably an A&M loss before they get to Texas. But we'll see how that goes this coming Saturday when they take actually they're off this week for Georgia, so they get a little bit of a break, and then Georgia coming up next week. Big games coming up. We cannot wait
That's
to
probably that's a much needed break for them as well.
yeah, especially to get healthy and get right with we're missing our top defensive back this week as he was out with injury. All right, so we're gonna move on here as we're gonna pick some games as these are big games that are probably gonna decide a lot this week. We are gonna start in the Big Ten,
Yeah.
Oregon versus Iowa. This is a Big Ten conference title slash CFP eliminator, pretty much. Mark, who do you got and why?
For those of you that don't know and don't understand why we're picking this game, go watch a few Iowa games, um, even win or loss. That team is a stingy, gritty team. I believe are they is Iowa home in this one?
Yeah, Kennick 3:30.
That field is not an easy field to play at all. That field is a game changer. You got the hospital right there. They do the wave.
Love the
They
way.
do their little
Love the.
and they start their thing off. But Kinnick is not an easy place to play. Oregon has faltered at times and has looked relatively rough at some stretches. I do think Oregon wins this one, but it's gonna be a backyard brawl to say the least. And whoever comes out of it is gonna come out beaten, battered, and bloody because Iowa just doesn't take no for an answer. They could be 0-10 and give everybody the fight of their lives each and every week, especially at home. So I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa makes this a game or even wins this one, but I think Oregon has the talent. I think Moore is still making a good case for that Heisman run, and I think they kind of get back on track and get another good win here and try to make their push towards the Big Ten championship game, barring an Ohio State or Indiana loss.
Yeah, I think if this was a 7:30 kick, I would maybe lean Iowa because you don't want to play Iowa at night. Michigan's experienced it. Ohio State has
Hell
experienced
no.
it. You don't want to play Iowa at night with Kirk Ferentz and all that, but I think Oregon will do it. I think it's gonna be close. I think their stingy defense is gonna give Oregon
I agree.
fits maybe going into the fourth quarter, but I think Oregon will just do enough. But and Oregon's schedule's not easy either. They still got USC coming up. They still got Washington coming up, so they're not out of it either. So out of the woods either. So unfortunately, I think Iowa's dreams of CFP and Big Ten go to die this weekend. Unfortunately, and they're making a great run at it. They're improving. They finally got a quarterback when they really never really had a quarterback, so that's good for them. So and their defense is still their defense, but I think Oregon's going to win. It's going to be close. I think the line's like -3 or something for Oregon. I see that line staying. I see that score staying within 3 to maybe 7 points,
Yeah.
depending on how Iowa does. So give me Oregon in that one. And probably this is a Big 12 slash CFP eliminator, at least for Texas Tech, because they already have one loss. BYU undefeated. It is BYU versus Texas Tech. The college game day will be there this weekend. And Mark, I think I'm going the upset. I like BYU going into Texas Tech. I think BYU's
Oh,
really playing the part. I thought about this. Texas Tech. I mean, they're without their quarterback. I believe they lost their quarterback, and I think BYU. This is BYU's run, and this is BYU's year. They're the Arizona State of the Big 12. Give me BYU. I think it's close. Maybe they start pulling away late. Give me BYU in this one.
I was actually going BYU as well on this one. I think BYU has shown a couple different things. They've shown they can win a shootout. They've shown they can win a slugfest. And I do believe Texas Tech is without their quarterback. Last time I looked as well. If I'm wrong, I apologize. However,
Also,
without that quarterback, I lean BYU. They haven't had a loss yet, and they haven't just played a bunch of nobodies either. I mean, they opened a can of whoop ass on Utah. They've been playing really good football. They're on a roll. and I don't see them really looking back. I think BYU wins this one. I do think it's a probably a one score game, but I think BYU finds a way and probably holds off a late surge from Texas Tech.
Yeah, 10 a.m. kick for BYU, 11 a.m. kick for Texas Tech. So it'll be which team can get motivated and get going first to get the win in that one. Another game, probably an eliminator for good for Missouri, as they're taking out Texas A&M. Texas A&M has everything in front of them. Number 3 team in the country, still a quiet team nobody's talking about. So, and they're just hanging around as ready to pounce. Mark, who are you taking?
I love this A&M team. This A&M team reminds me of um the skill level talent that they had when Manziel played, but without the falters, without the losses. I mean, their quarterback is playing out of his mind. He looks like a second coming of Lamar Jackson on some of these runs, some of these plays. I mean, they're playing great football. I don't really see them losing anytime soon. I think they're just on too much of a roll, too much of a heater, and they're just rolling through teams. And I think it's no different. I believe Prabula is still out,
Yeah.
and that makes all the difference. Give me A&M here.
Yeah, we're agreeing. That's probably not a good thing when we're agreeing. So, but yeah, I like A&M
Yeah,
too.
sorry, Texas A&M.
Yeah, well, I think we're agreeing on our picks. We'll somehow go for 5 on these picks. So just so you know, don't listen to us. But so, Mark knows. A&M, I think they're gonna roll. Missouri without their quarterback, they got too much. A&M's got too much to play for coming up. They're looking at that Texas game. That's pretty much gonna be for it all unless Texas slips. But give me A&M in that one. And another one, let's go with the smaller conference first before we get to the last one. Tulane and Memphis. This is a win, or you're going to a no one cares about bowl. I mean, we care about bowl games. We love the bowl games, but a bowl that's not a CFP
Go
bowl.
Pop Tarts.
Pop Tart going to the Pop Tart Bowl pretty much. Win it if you win, you keep your hopes alive for at least another week. Tulane versus Memphis. Mark, I think this is Tulane's last gasp. I'm going Tulane. I think they're going to get it done. Memphis kind of Cinderella story comes to an end. I think their coach knows. I think they know their coach is probably on his way out after the season, one way or another. I think he's probably going to one of these openings in the SEC or maybe in Oregon State or Virginia Tech. But he's gone. He's probably gone after this year. So give me Tulane. It's going to try to rock this out as much as they can and try to get one more shot at the CFP.
Yeah, and I'm actually going the other way. I
Oh
do
my!
agree with you that I think this Memphis coach um I do think he does get one of these jobs. He's completely flipped that program around, and done a great job doing it. They're actually relevant again. And I think because of that and because he will want to look at some of these jobs, I think this is an important game for him, especially to stay alive, and he's going to have their boys ready to go. I like Memphis in a close one on this one. Tulane, for those of you that don't know, though, they have a very interesting play style and a very interesting offense that gives a lot of teams, including Power Five teams, some trouble when you're not careful. So it'll be an interesting game, but I think Memphis coach needs it more as he tries to move up in the rankings. Um, as far as the coaching carousel goes, and that's why I'm taking Memphis on this one.
Hey, we're divided. Yeah, I can see Memphis. I think Memphis ran out of steam. I just think Tulane's. No one's talking about Tulane. They're all talking about North Texas and South Florida and Memphis. I think Tulane's just sitting there and
Hey,
because the
North
Mountain West.
Texas was good.
Yeah, they defeated Navy, but and they got the Mountain West beating up on each other. We thought Boise was going to get in. There's 3 losses. They're probably not going to get in. San Diego State's probably the only hope, if anything. Hawaii's hanging around, but they're not going to get in this year
Yeah,
at least. So this is, I think, America's conference again, as it's either going to be Tulane, Memphis, or North Texas. I think South Florida kind of took themselves out after losing a couple games. But so, yeah, I like Tulane. I like Tulane to keep their hopes alive, especially when it comes to championship Saturday, have everything in front of them to play for. So I'm going to take Tulane on this one. So that wraps up our college talk as it's very interesting weekend, I think, Mark, because you got a lot of pretty much essential elimination games, and with teams with one loss or two, well, one conference loss or two, one overall loss or two, Mark, and it's going to be pretty much this is the best foot forward, folks, and we keep saying this. We keep saying it till the end of the season, till rivalry week. These are the games you want to watch. These are what the games everyone plays for, and they love these. These are meaningful games down the stretch. And you don't want to miss it week in and week out.
Yeah, I agree. Not only are they the most meaningful games, but as far as the season goes, um, I'd love to know the record of top 20 or top 25 ranked teams getting beat because we have to be up there every single week. You're looking at two, three, four, sometimes five or six teams getting beaten, getting shuffled around. You never know who's gonna stay afloat week in and week out. It's been a wild, wild NCAA season, and the best is still yet to come. As the season pretty much has 3 weeks left, championships to play, and then we're looking at the CFP. So, I mean, if you thought it's been crazy thus far, you guys better buckle up because it's about to get a whole lot crazier.
My fault. We forgot one. We forgot this pretty much now game means a lot now. We forgot about talking about Navy versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame is looking to pretty much punch their ticket to the CFP as Navy versus Notre Dame. Mark, who do you got?
You know, I really wanted Navy to win last week. We've talked about on this podcast and in person before how much I hate Notre Dame. Not really because of anything other than the fact that they're so reluctant and nobody will force them to be in a conference. I think it's bullshit still to this day, and I'll die on that hill. So with that being said, you know what?
Do
Fuck it.
it.
I'm going
Do it.
Navy just because I hate Notre Dame. I hate Notre Dame so much. I want somebody to punish them. I want somebody to beat them right now so they have no choice but to go into a conference because even with two losses, they would potentially still have a shot, but they don't play in a conference championship. They need to get off their high horse just because they're an all time Catholic school. I really don't care. Like, just get over it and get into a conference like you've done with every other sport. Give me Navy on the upset and to get Notre Dame up out of there and get a new team into college football, send them into a conference.
Hey, and I mean Notre Dame, if they still got Pittsburgh the following week, so I mean they still got two games that could decide their future of the CFP. But I think I'm going Notre Dame. I think Navy will give them a run. I won't be surprised if Navy does pull it off, like Mark said. But I think Notre Dame in the end, they're on a mission to the shipment. They're on a mission to overthrow the shipment and get. We still salute America. We still salute America. We love America. That's what America's for. America's pulling for Navy to beat Notre Dame this week. So we're gonna be Navy fans, but realistically, I think Notre Dame's going to pull it off and set themselves. We'll see where they're at in the rankings. It'll be very interesting to see. You would think they're probably in taking a spot away
That will
from
be interesting, yeah.
they're probably taking a spot away because that now that Miami loss looks a little shaky now after the past couple of losses. So we'll see what they do there.
Yeah, they
So,
stink.
so very very interesting week one of the rankings. Mark, non-bias aside, we're gonna get in. So this is what the overtime show is gonna be. We're gonna do this on the overtime show on Sunday, so that Wednesday frees up time for us to debate this. But since we really don't have much time to debate, Mark, really quick, who's number one come the CFP rankings this week? Non-biased.
It's gotta be it's gotta be Ohio State. I think they're the most complete team. I think they have not only done what they've needed to do by way of wins, but they've done it in the fashion in which they've needed to. I understand, and let me make this very clear. I understand the wins don't look great right now outside of Texas finally surging back. But you also can't control a team having to fire a head coach. You've walked into every stadium, no matter who you've played, and you've dog walked them. Up until last week, you had given up 12 points on the entire year. That includes a Texas team that is now surging, and all their players still played in that game. Don't forget that. But as far as it goes, I think Ohio State's won. I think A&M is a close two. I wouldn't be surprised if A&M does pop in at one, but I don't think you can remove Ohio State at this point in time because they haven't really faltered um, very much. They've done everything they're supposed to do on top of being the defending champs with a brand new quarterback under center and all new coordinators. Don't forget that they lost both coordinators last year. Walking into this year, they were supposed to be question marks, and they've passed the test with flying colors up to this point. I think Ohio State has to be one still.
Uh,
This is gonna kill you to say, ain't it, Kyle?
Nope, because I'm going Indiana, and here's why. Because I'm going Indiana because you got to look. Mark's going off how Ohio State looks, not just schedule, but on the field. If you're going off strength of schedule, which the committee always does something weird each and every season, they always figure out something. Now Indiana
This
could
is
be
true.
because now look at the schedule. You got an Oregon team who you went on the road to beat. They're in the top 10. An Iowa team surging, and
Yeah.
they just won their biggest game against Minnesota a couple weeks ago. And that's a better resume than Ohio State's got. Now, we always say you cannot pick your conference games. The conference gives you the game, so we're not. You can't give conference. You can't really pick conference who you play. You just play who you play. But you can
Yep.
control the
That's
non-conference.
correct.
So non-conference, Texas, yes, Ohio State's got that. Indiana really played cupcakes like Penn State did, but I think if you're going off what you did, you went on the road both places to Oregon and Iowa, okay, and you beat them. You beat them, and now those wins
And they
slowly.
did beat down Illinois.
Yeah, and Ohio State had to struggle a little bit. Granted, it was on the road, but they still beat Illinois. I think if you're going off resume instead of just how they look, I think you're going Indiana because of how going on the road to those games and winning in the conference. Now, if you're going off how they look in that one non-conference, you're going Ohio State. But the committee, I don't know what the committee. We don't know what the committee's going to do because, like we said, they always shock us with one. They always have 1 week where they shock us, especially. And this is where it gets me a little bit. The NFL, like, okay, let's just for instance, we're going to take the Browns for example, like they or another team, like they struggle, but you're like, oh, you know what? The rankings don't matter. Like I fall into that sometimes, like, oh, this team struggled in the NFL. Oh, wait, there's no rankings, so it don't really matter how they struggle as long as they win, they win.
Yep.
But so like, let's just say, okay, Ohio State struggles against UCLA coming up, then well, and Indiana continues to just power through. Well, then you're like, well, okay, they get and Indiana's gets a shot at Penn State. So we're gonna see how they look at Penn State next week. So I think I'd go Indiana. If I'm being honest, non-biased. If I go, you're going off how they look, and they still kind of dumped Maryland this past week. Give me Indiana. I mean, either one's good. Ohio State could be one, Indiana could be one, and they're on a collision course to play for the Big Ten title unless Michigan or somebody on Indiana's schedule kind of disrupts that coming up. But yeah, give me Indiana close mark, but I would probably won't be shocked if tomorrow or Tuesday Ohio State's number one.
Yeah, I mean, I think you for sure, obviously, like we said, we'll debate it later on, but I think you for sure have a solid top three that you already know.
Agreed.
Um, it's Ohio State, Indiana, A&M. Off
Agreed.
the rip, no matter what. But what they're and while Indiana's resume is good, I still I still can side with the fact that although if you go based off resume, and again, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but if you go off resume, I do think Indiana wins. I think if you go off of what the committee has shown, A&M probably wins based off the fact that they're the lone SEC team that's undefeated. They have been a Notre Dame team that has surged.
They got
Florida's looked good back and forth, and they did beat Florida as well. They beat an LSU team that was highly ranked. So I mean, A&M now looking at it has had a bit of an easier schedule, but they're an SEC team going through the conference, and we all know how the committee loves SEC. So I could see them being one, but if you go off eye test alone, I think it's Ohio State as one. So it'll be very interesting to see, especially on Sunday when we debate this, because I think you do have a separate argument for all three of those teams. It just depends on what argument you want to go off of.
Yeah, and the games on Sunday the games will be played before we even discuss this. So we're going to discuss what we thought, and then obviously the games. And then Wednesday we'll have a little more, or next Wednesday we'll have a little more debate on it. But I agree with the top three: Indiana, Ohio State, Texas A&M. If you put them in any particular order, I wouldn't be mad. But I just think if number one for we'll see because they always had the interview
I
with the
agree.
chair. They always have the interview with the chairman right after the rankings come out, so it'll be very interesting to see how they do. And we cannot wait because we're also going to have we'll keep reminding you, our Selection Sunday special. It's going to be very fun. We're going to do it on overtime. We're going to do it live on TikTok so we could talk with you guys as well. We're going to be able to have our live reactions, especially if we always know there's controversy come Selection Sunday. So there's going to be a lot of things. We're gonna have a lot of reaction. So we'll remind you. We're gonna talk about that here in a little bit as we get going. But real quick with a shout out here. My brother Ian, his birthday's coming up on Saturday. Is Ian? I just want to wish you a happy birthday, and I hope you enjoy it as he's in Indiana right now with his, or in Atlanta with his friend or with his fiance Anya. So Ian, have a great birthday. You're an amazing brother. I love you. Stay safe. And happy birthday, my guy. Can't wait to celebrate with you very soon. As we have reached the witching hour, which usually my internet goes wonky here in the hour plus. So here we go. Welcome, where my internet becomes wins or it could become a loss, and very soon. So we'll see we'll see how it goes. So we're gonna move on to the NFL as the Bengals as let's let's do. I don't care if you cut some games out because I know we're gonna talk to this real quick. We have some interesting news that has happened. Well, we don't think it's gonna happen. Maybe it will happen, but Mike Hall Jr. from the Cleveland Browns, Mark, has released a tweet, then kind of quickly deleted that. He said traded. We don't know what that means. We may not find out as of now. We don't know as of this recording. We're recording. We don't know. May know more before we release this. But Mark, I won't be if he does get traded. I wouldn't miss him. I wouldn't miss him. He's not. We're not really missing much if we trade him.
No, I wouldn't miss him. I liked him at Ohio State. I liked the pick when we got him. I think he's underutilized. But I think this. I'm taking this tweet a completely different way. People are going to be mad or not understand the business of football, getting traded, etc. Obviously, the deadline is tomorrow at the time of this recording. So there is a lot of moves still to be made. But when it comes down to it, the bigger thing that I take away from this is it's pretty clear that Stefanski and Barry have lost the locker room completely. When you have teams and players on social media putting stuff out, deleting them. You have your star player having 5 sacks, you lose by 20 points the week prior, and then he's bashing the team saying he just wants to win. Obviously, we don't feel bad for him because he cashed his check and that's what he's here for. But it still appears to be a lot of turmoil. You have conflicting reports and interviews when you have your owner saying he wants one quarterback, your GM saying he wants one quarterback, and you have the head coach saying he wants the other quarterback. Now, I did find some interesting news that I have been digging into, and it does appear that not only does Kevin Stefanski and Dylan Gabriel have the same agent who helps sign their contracts and things like that, but that same agent also represents all three of Dylan Gabriel's college coaches:
Yeah,
Dan Lanning, Brett Venables, and Gus Malzahn. Those three college coaches also get an incentive on NFL players playing time in the NFL after they've graduated and gone on, et cetera, et cetera. So something interesting to watch as well, because it seems that we've all been questioning why Stefanski's hitched his wagon to Gabriel as much as he has, and then not only does this come out with the agent thing and this incentive thing where the agent's kind of just cashing in. So is Stefanski getting um, held at gunpoint here to play Gabriel because his agent represents him, and
I think the other way.
they're soul tied. But at the same time, we also have news now that Tommy Reese, which we've been calling for, is finally getting play calling duties. Again, a coincidence? I think not, because he's losing the locker room. The offense looks abysmal. The defense is on the field 90% of the time. For the second straight year, mid-season, Stefanski's done this. I think for the second straight year, he's lost the locker room, and you have star players getting leaked with trade rumors. You have a trade rumor on Friday from the Eagles of 3 first-round picks that, at the time of this recording, as far as I've read, Miles Garrett, while they don't want to trade him, they're still getting calls about him. David Njoku is rumored to be on the block potentially, and being sent to a potential contender at the time of this recording. They have come out and said that they don't necessarily want to trade him, but other moves and teams have called about him. They've signed 3 tight ends. They drafted a great tight. I love the pick in Harold Fannin,
I
but
love
it
it.
seems as though they although all the reports are saying that the Browns should be buyers in this cycle, it appears more and more in the next 24 hours they're going to be sellers, and we're not sure what they're going to sell, but it'll remain to be seen whether or not we're going into a full-on rebuild based off of who they trade in the next about 24 to 30 hours.
Yeah, and as at the time of this recording, folks, this is gonna be already done with. So this is pretty much a nuisance, but we're still gonna give our take on it. But I think Kevin turned over to play calling because people have been calling for his head. And Mark, we talked about this a little bit, but I think where do I want to put this? He's it's a like a what do I want to say, like a proving point, like how I'm gonna do this, and this is why I don't give out play calling type of thing, like he did last year with Ken Dorsey, and he said, "Oh, here I'm gonna let time. Y'all want you
Yeah.
want here you go. Here you go. He's gonna call plays. When it doesn't happen, I'm gonna take it back. So, and I think this is. I don't. I think when you go to your point about forcing to play Gabriel, we all know he wanted Flacco. Look at Flacco. Is him and the Bengals had a shootout, put a career high up in yards last week or yesterday on Sunday, and. But I think it was more to move to play. They were forcing him to either play Sanders or Gabriel, mostly Sanders, and he didn't. He played with Gabriel. So I think he doesn't like Sanders for some reason, and now Sanders has a back injury. He may not play, and now we found out today Watson's ready to come back, ready to start practicing. So that's another. If I'm telling you, Mark, I'm going to keep saying this until I'm blue in the face. If Sanders does not play and Watson plays over him, Sanders is not playing a snap for the Cleveland Browns. I'm telling you right now, we're going to draft another QB. We're going to have Gabriel and we're going to have Watson. That's the roster. That's the QB going into next year. Because if you don't play over a guy that's been injured for over a year, there's something wrong. Now I get it, his back, but okay, let's say his back's healed next week. He's good to go. He can start practicing. He didn't practice today, and he said he was staying in Cleveland to work on stuff. But he's not practice. He didn't practice today. Tuesdays is the league mandated day off for those no NFL. There's no practice Tuesdays, but I'm telling you, Mark. I know you hate to hear it, and I know a couple other buddies hate to hear it. But if Sanders does not play before Watson, he's not playing at all as a Cleveland Brown.
I mean, I could see it. I say my only argument to that is simply that you don't want to sit there with that contract on the books and as much scrutiny of you, as you've gotten over it and not play him if he's ready, especially because of the way that the offense has been called and ran and the weapons that you have.
Mm-hmm.
I did hear an interesting take on a local Cleveland podcast as well. That for the longest time and for basically as long as we've been alive and longer, the recipe that the Browns have not tried is sitting a quarterback an entire year, not letting him play at all, and then starting him the very next year. They've gone half a season. They've gone a quarter of the season. They've gone a couple games. They've started kids right away. None of it has worked. We obviously, everybody knows the infamous jersey of all the quarterbacks in the last 20 years, whatever. So
Yep.
it isn't too far out to think as well that they could possibly be sitting him. They might see something in him where maybe they want to get him a full year of NFL football, see how he responds to all the media, all of the heat of him not playing, of him get grasping an NFL playbook, an NFL roster, and maybe they see. And now this is just all hypothetical. Obviously, I'm kind of throwing shit at the wall and hoping it'll stick here. But maybe they also see that they don't have the adequate weapons for this specific quarterback to succeed, so they'd rather sit him than blow the thing up when he's such a media darling, so to speak. Because you had that once already. You had it with Manziel. He was a media darling. No matter
Mm-hmm.
how much he messed up, everybody
Right.
still loved him. We all wanted him to play. They played him early with no weapons. All he had was
Right.
smoking weed, Josh Gordon, and that was it. Not only did Johnny not put the work in, but he didn't have the weapons to be successful as well, like he did in college. And I think potentially you could see them maybe actually giving a shit for once. And I think that's Barry's ace in the hole right there. Is hey, we haven't tried this kid out yet. We've been waiting for him. Give me one more year. Give me 5 games. Give me whatever. Let's throw the kid in. We've been grooming him, and I think that's another portion that I think not a lot of people really thinking about, and I've been thinking about it since the bye week, is they could be keeping an ace in the hole, knowing that their team isn't very good right now and probably won't be for at least another year or two as they try to get young weapons or veteran weapons that are formidable here. And maybe they keep Sanders the ace in the hole and they say, hey, listen, everybody loves him. We have him here. Let's play him. I think he's finally ready. And then they have the weapons around him to maybe succeed.
But I go back to this, Mark. I go back to this. If he was ready to play, why is he not playing over Gabriel? It makes zero sense to me. You all, and I know, say you all, because I know you claiming for it, but not a shot at you. But everybody wants Sanders to play, but nobody's giving me a reason or a thing. Why is he not playing right now? Why is he not playing over Gabriel once Flacco got traded? This the fourth of. I'm gonna keep saying this. Nobody has given me an answer, Mark, and I'm being, and not like I said, not towards you, but a couple other people that we know. Why is he not playing right now? Why is he not playing before Gabriel? It makes zero sense. If he was ready, this was my point. If he was ready to go, he would be playing, but he's not. And I think people don't realize, like you said, Mark, the TV guy, the media guy. Oh, it's Sanders, Sanders, Sanders. Look at Colorado. He doesn't have Travis Hunter. He had Travis Hunter. Okay, college is college in a weak Big 12. Congratulations, you still didn't do. You still didn't do anything. You still missed out on CFB Big 10 title or Big 12 title game. And you want him to play, but common sense, folks. Common sense. I know people are big Shador fans. I know Mark. I know you are, but it's frustrating. Why aren't you guys playing? Why isn't he playing if he's ready? No one can answer me that.
I mean, yeah, I don't I don't disagree to an extent. There's always an argument there. I do think when it comes down to it, Gabriel has the experience of big time football. He has 64 starts under his belt in big college football, while Sanders has a lot of starts as well. Part of it did come in the HBCU stratosphere of things, so it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, I think no matter what route they take, it's always going to be frustrating to be a Browns fan, and I don't know how often or how easily they're going to find a quarterback. If it's my opinion, they try to stick with what they got with these two kids. You see what you got with Watson still, and you draft some damn weapons to help a quarterback out. Because the one thing I will say, um, Johnny Manziel goes on a podcast I listen to every Saturday, and he does make a good point when it comes to some of his Browns takes. While he hates the Browns for the way his career went, and part of it was his fault, he does make the take that they're not helping their quarterbacks either. And I've been in that camp. I know, Kyle, you've been in that camp as well. When your best pass catcher are tight ends,
Mm-hmm.
there's a problem. When your running back is saying it's a good situation because he's going to touch the ball 30 times a game because you have no offense other
Yep.
than that, there's a problem. When you have probably a fringe number 2 guy as your number 1A and he has a history of the dropsies, you have a problem. If you want to let a quarterback succeed, you also have to put the picks and you have to put the trades and you have to put the effort in like you did when Mayfield first got here and put weapons around him so that one of these kids can succeed. Because the one thing I will say is no matter whether it's Gabriel, whether it was Flacco, because you see what is happening now that he has weapons. He's became the first ever 40-year-old to throw over 400 yards, and he almost threw for 500 in an NFL game. That's unheard of, by the way. Um, and on top of that, like you have to give these quarterbacks a chance to succeed and some weapons for them to look at. Otherwise, they're always going to be busting. They're always going to be looking for someone else because the quarterback is the easiest position to blame as well.
And yeah, you could get weapons, but here's what I don't get: why are we buying at the deadline? We are out of it. I mean, there's games you can win. You could be okay 4-7 after defeating the Jets in Vegas and then losing to Baltimore in this 3 game stretch. But they also said too. I was listening to a couple things. One of the sports guys, hosts here in Cleveland, he's like, yeah, you look at those and are like, yeah, those could be potential wins. But those same teams looking at you now are like, yeah, that's Cleveland's a win. They don't have a quarterback that could throw the ball over 15 yards a pass. So it's very interesting. I don't get why are we buying. That's one thing, Mark. Why are we buyers? What are we buying? The young assets help the team.
Yeah,
Who?
honest,
It's
quite
very
honestly, if you're not buying one of these, if you're not if they're not out there trying to buy one of these young receivers that are going on the block for a seller, there's no reason to be buying and you should be selling.
Yeah, sell. I mean,
The
maybe
only
trade.
exception I would make is a pass catcher.
Yeah, and we'll see who. It's gonna be very interesting. From where we're recording, of interesting 12 hours or so. I would say 12, with 24 hours, less than 24 hours now. Let's see, it's 8 o'clock, so -4, so 20 hours between now and the deadline to see what happens. As there's already been some trades being made, so it's be very interesting to see. As we can't wait to dive into whatever happens tomorrow for next week. So stay tuned. I'm sure we're either going to be happy one way, happy or not happy another way, or confused, which the team always makes us be confused. So we'll see how that goes. All right, we're gonna kind of speed up just a little bit because I know as we kind of had stuff planned for these past two shows, but Sunday we had some personal things come up, so we couldn't do the show. So we're gonna speed things up. We're gonna talk about the Sunday show coming up in a minute, but let's talk a crazy game: the Bears and the Bengals. Chicago wins 47-42. Mark, how about that? The Bears had to come. They lost. Had the big lead, lost it. Had to come back in the fourth quarter. Colston Loveland, 58-yard touchdown to win it. And the Bengals defense has crumbled. And now that make two straight losses, they're scoring over 30 plus points and losing first time since like the 1960s that's happened. Flacco had a career high 470 passing yards, but how about these Bears? As I told you yesterday, Mark, it must be fun to watch football if you're a non-Browns fan. Looking at all these teams competing.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the most insane game I've ever seen. Um, I mean, when you talk about you basically saw 30 points get scored in the matter of 2 minutes. You saw 21 points in a minute. I mean, both teams lighting it up all over the place. Both defenses nowhere to be found, but that's
Oh,
neither here nor there. When it comes down to it, the Bengals defense was just that much more terrible than the Bears defense, and it's no wonder they have guys wanting to get traded like Logan Wilson, like Trey Hendrickson, because again, I think in back-to-back weeks now they've scored 40 plus points and lost.
mm-hmm.
So they're kind of, it seems like it's an Ohio thing to score a boatload of points and lose in some weird, crazy way. But it's another stinger for the Browns as well because you see Joe Flacco for another straight week. I mean, just tear it up. He
Yeah,
lit the Bears up. He gave them everything they could handle and then some. I mean, he won. He should have won the game at 58 seconds to go, and his defense shit the bed. And Loveland. And let me say this. Shout out to Caleb Williams. He has a lot of pressure on him, and this year he's starting to show up and show out under that Ben Johnson offense. He's had his struggles, and there is reports of just how hard Ben Johnson's offense is to grasp, especially because he counts so much on a star quarterback to do that bidding. But the last couple of weeks, Williams has looked really, really good. That offense is young, they're hungry, and they've got some playmakers, and now you're starting to see it all kind of come in fruition. If their defense can literally stop a runny nose, they might have a chance in a star-studded division there. But the Bears, we called it the other day. They're a sneaky, sneaky team, and if they start putting it together under Ben Johnson, he looks like the real deal at head coach. And Caleb Williams, as Pat McAfee called it, doing Caleb shit, finds out a way to win just like he did in college this past weekend, and it looks like he's starting to get his footing in the NFL a little bit.
yeah. We didn't think the way the Bears were playing at this, last year that this would be Ben Johnson or that this Williams experience would or Ben Johnson experience would happen. But now you look and they're playing well. They're playing for 5-3, well in contention for a playoff spot, whether it's division or wild card. As they're in the contention for the division as well right now, as the Packers lost, and they're in the wild card race as well. So this will be a very interesting for the. I think it's more takeaway probably of the Bears because they're still a young team, but they could have just called it quits and could have made rookie mistake if you're Caleb Williams, second year rookie. But they fought to the end. And Costa 11 is one of the top 10 tight end that got picked by the Bears from Michigan in this past draft. But the Bears, give the Bears credit, they fought to the end, Mark. And this is going to be a very interesting division. NFC North is very interesting now since the Packers lost, and we're going to talk about that right now as Carolina defeated Green Bay 16-13. Carolina, Mark, another team. Could they steal a wild card spot? Green Bay looked very, I don't know, they just looked out of their game plan after Carolina struck first. And the Packers, they just looked out of sync. Emotional letdown from the Aaron Rodgers Bowl maybe last week, but here comes Carolina again. Mark, the message as we a message on our show. Must be fun to watch fun football on Sundays.
Yeah, I mean, no kidding. They're starting to put it together again. Another young team with another young quarterback. We were wondering what Bryce Young would look like this year after he seemed to take that benching to heart and really start to figure it out. And he kind of looks like the Bryce Young from Bama a couple years ago. He looks like he's starting to figure it out. He Unlike the Browns, his organization is starting to give him weapons, and now he's starting to flourish. Rico Dowdell, it's insane to think that he was almost a third stringer in Dallas at one point in time. He couldn't get any type of run game going last year, and all of a sudden, he's exploded this year for Carolina. And they still have Chuba Hubbard on that roster when he gets off injury. Um, McMillan looks pretty good. I mean, the Panthers all of a sudden went from a laughing stock to you can't really sleep on them because they'll play hard. They still have that good defense over there in Carolina. That's
Yep.
what they've hung their hat on. They've always had that sneaky good defense. Now that their offense is starting to score points, they look on the up and up, and they can be an exciting young team moving forward. And they're showing a lot of promise here right now.
Yeah, and does Chuba Hubbard maybe get traded? Because it looks like Chuba Hubbard has lost his starting spot, and who knows? But they still got a good
Yeah,
kind of good 1-2 punch with Carolina with that running back. But yeah, Bryce Young is as Carolina got smoked by Buffalo last week, come back, and maybe Bryce Young is maturing before our eyes, just like Caleb Williams is. So it's gonna be very interesting. In Green Bay, they're still alive. They probably should still make a run at it with that division, but it's just very weird that took Green Bay out of it. They just lost their tight end Tucker Kraft after having a monster game last week on Sunday Night Football. So he's gone. So it's whoever wins
yeah.
fantasy and whoever wins the Super Bowl is gonna win with like you remember those you get a hole in the tire and you patch it up. That's what it's gonna be. You're gonna have a band-aid, you're gonna have a patch on that tire because
Literally.
you don't know who's gonna win this year. A lot of injuries, and it's only week 9. We're going into week
There's
10
been
coming
so
week.
many big players injured.
Yeah, and Green Bay fell short of that this week with their tight end torn ACL. More than likely done for the season. We'll see him next year at some point. But it's very interesting. Carolina looked very good. I think, Mark, if I'll be honest with you, as I said, and I told you and a couple other buddies, Carolina they could still wild card like you. And going to your point, you told me NFC beating the crap out of each other. It's right there for the taking.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. They're sneaking their way in. They're playing hard nosed football. They're staying in close games, and you never know which way the ball's going to kind of fall there, and they're taking advantage of it. I wouldn't be surprised if they grab one of those last spots.
So we'll see on that. Carolina is at home next week, I believe. I think they're at home. But I know Green Bay's playing next week. The Eagles. That's a big Monday night game. A lot big NFC playoff positioning there. So we'll see how that goes. We're gonna move on to another game that was interesting. The Colts and the Steelers. Pittsburgh wins 27-20. Game was more lopsided than the score kind of indicated, Mark, as Pitt's defense came back with a vengeance after the past 2 games, not really playing good defense. Come back and have the game of their lives since probably earlier on this season. Colts, they had a loss. They're not. No one's gonna escape with one loss or less unless you're the dynasty Brady Patriots. So, but Danny Dimes almost had like 4 turnovers. Colts they just struggled, and here come the steel curtain. Mark, they unfortunately they look the part, and they're leading the division by 2 games now.
Yeah, I mean they came back and looked good. I know there was reports that Cam Hayward called a team meeting at least for the defense and called out each and every one of them, including himself, to show up and play better. Their defense hadn't been playing good for a few weeks. Um and the Steelers are famous for defense alone. I think it says more about the Steelers than it does the Colts. You do the Colts
Yeah.
at some point we're gonna slow down for a game or two at least a little bit. I don't see the Colts really faltering too much. I don't see this as like some swing thing for their season where they can never recover. I think they
Yeah.
just ran out of steam, ran out of gas a little bit, and and they'll be back and they'll be fine. but I think it sells more about the Steelers and their ability to come back and win a much needed game, um, and start to gain ground on a division that is getting a little bit healthier, at
Yeah,
least
here
with the
Raven.
Ravens, and you don't know when Burrow's going to come back as well. Um, so I mean, when it comes down to it, Steelers were kind of in a pseudo must-win position, based off of how the AFC North is shaping out. And they answered the bell. They played good defense. I believe, they had 5 turnovers in the game, and they capitalized. And but the Colts didn't let them go without a fight. They surged late and tried to make it a game. I know the Colts lost me some money, but the Steelers figured it out, and like you said, we hate to see it, but as Cleveland fans, but for Kyle's take on the Steelers winning the division, getting a playoff spot, it's looking very promising right now.
Hold on. We're. I'm worried about the Ravens. I still think the Steelers will make the playoffs, but right now, Ravens are coming back. Uh, I'm not crying them yet. We're not gonna. We're not gonna. I know you hate this, especially when we listen to podcasts and we listen to Pat McAfee. You know this because he does it all the time to us. He did it to Ohio State. You hated it a couple weeks ago. You wanted to come to the TV screen and punch him because he's because you know what he was doing. He was crowning Ohio State Big Ten champions before that game was even played, and you hated it.
He
You
definitely
hated it.
was.
And so I'm not ready to crown him champs yet. I still think they make the playoffs, so we will see how they go. But yeah, I think they'll keep going. The defense is going to keep going, so they will be all right. So, and we're going to go to this game. This was the game of the day. Buffalo and Kansas City, 28-21 Buffalo win. Mark, I know we had a couple thoughts on this. All I'm going to say, can't Buffalo look good? But it's just the regular season, folks. I know a couple Bills fans, and I know they're excited. They don't like the Kansas City Chiefs, but don't get excited. You got to beat the January Chiefs. The Chiefs, they're 5-4. They're third in their division. We still don't think there's no way they don't make the playoffs. We still think they get in. If anything, a wildcard. They're a dangerous wildcard team. Mark, you cannot celebrate this win if you're Buffalo because you haven't beaten the January Chiefs yet.
I mean, yeah, it's tough because you know how good the Chiefs have been. You also know that I believe this is their fifth straight regular season loss to the Bills, if I'm not mistaken. There goes Kyle's internet. But again, this is the fifth straight loss that they've taken in the regular season to Buffalo. However, when push comes to shove, when the rubber needs to meet the road, um, it's been Kansas City in the playoffs who essentially get it done and get it done in exciting fashion each and every year. Um, and I mean, I'm in agreement with Kyle there when it comes to this. While it's a good win in the regular season, everybody I think hypes it up a little bit too much because of how exciting those matchups are, and they're not really taking into account that both of these teams are more than likely playoff teams. They will more than likely meet again, just because that's always end up how it works. And at the end of the day, Kansas City kind of rules that playoff that playoff series when it comes down to it. They might lose in the regular season. Buffalo might get one over on them. Josh Allen might beat Mahomes, and they might outplay them extraordinarily. But in the playoffs, when things matter and it's win or go home, the Chiefs always find a way to win, and they win in exciting fashion. And the Bills are left watching confetti fall um, on them for the Chiefs, and it's not for them. So that's the other portion of things. There is that well, it's a good regular season win. Ultimately, it is just the regular season, and you can't hold too much stock in it because when they do meet and they meet in a win or go home situation, it's always been Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs who find a way to figure that out and win. Um, so again, they're both playoff teams. Josh Allen played some good football. So did their defense. Um, and we'll see how it pans out there for those two. Obviously, two very exciting teams that we all enjoy watching um, down the stretch, as well as just anytime they're playing a game of football. Um, so we're gonna kind of move it on a little bit. Lions Vikings should be the last one. The Lions fall to the Vikings. The Vikings and JJ McCarthy actually end up looking pretty good. The Lions, they played a decent game, but the Vikings end up getting a win there, and the Vikings are still right back in it for the division. Um, so it's very, very interesting when it comes down to it, just based off the fact that you would have thought the Lions and the Packers pretty much would run this division. And now they're all kind of neck and neck. We already talked about the Bears. And now we're looking at, I mean, the Vikings won. They're 4-4 with a 27-24 victory. McCarthy throws for 2 touchdowns. Um, you got Addison, you got Jefferson, you got Hawkinson on that Vikings team. However, the Vikings really need to get a run game going. Aaron Jones came back and then got hurt, and then you have obviously Jordan Mason um, who came in relief. But as far as that goes, I mean, they need to get a run game going. While on the Lions side of things, the Lions didn't really have any run game. Um, I mean, they combined for 65 yards for the running backs as a whole, but obviously Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown go for almost 100 yards. JMO goes for 66 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, their passing attack is up there and it's working well. But again, the Lions defense is struggling. They lost both coordinators. Their offense still has enough talent, but it's interesting to see because in the games that they do lose, their defense is giving up a lot of points. When you give up a lot of points, you start to wonder uh about the defense, about the defensive systeming, and things like that, especially when it comes to I mean, some of these teams are not scoring a boatload when they come in and all of a sudden they're dropping I mean they're dropping 20, 30 points here. I mean you lose to Kansas City, you give up 30 points. The Vikings almost scored 30 points. Um and the Packers almost score 30 points. So you're kind of looking at it and in your losses your defense is giving up a boatload of points and you're playing in shootout games. Um and your offense, while it can sustain it, you kind of know how Dan Campbell plays, and there's tape on an offense. Whereas on the defensive side of the ball, you start to struggle. You start to look at things, and when it comes to the Lions, you really think, was their defense as good as it was, or was it Aaron Glenn's system? With Kyle back, Kyle was touching on the Vikings and the Lions. McCarthy looks decent, but the Lions' defense in all three of their losses gives up about 30 points a game when they do lose the ball game. Very interesting to see, especially when they don't have their running game going as much as normal. They combined for 65 yards on the ground between their two good running backs. So again, very interesting to see. They lose by 3 points, and that division is now wide open.
Yeah, I thought that was very very interesting. They didn't really feed Gibbs a lot. They only Gibbs was like less than like maybe 15 carries, and they featured Montgomery more. Um maybe Gibbs was hurt. We just don't know about. But this was very interesting, Mark. And I don't know. Minnesota. I didn't think JJ would play this well, especially first game back coming off from surgery or injury. So it's been very interesting to see how they play and they um how they turn about. And if they Minnesota plays the way they do, I think they'll sneak in. We thought Minnesota could have a chance to sneak in this thing, without and you put the Bears and all that. It's gonna be a competitive division, just like the NFC West is gonna be. The NFC North is gonna be a very competitive division too. So I don't know. Maybe Detroit just had because they kind of struggled against Tampa Bay too until they found their groove at the end. So I don't know. Is Detroit? Did they miss? I see a couple people on Twitter. Did
Yeah,
they miss their window? Did they miss their timing to get into the Super Bowl, especially losing the Eagles the one year? I don't know. It's gonna be very very interesting to see, Mark. But it's very telling how this is gonna go the rest of the way.
I mean, yeah, I agree. And that question will loom large here. I think in the next coming couple of years, especially when things kind of shake out as players get older, as you need to start paying certain guys over, and you need to start making decisions there. Um, but yeah, it's very interesting. And for the Lions' sake, for a fellow 0-16 team, I do hope their window isn't closed. But only time will tell.
Time will tell us. We're gonna move on to pick some games real quick, but hopefully before the internet doesn't cut off. We're going to start with Tampa Bay and New England. This is a very all of a sudden this is a great game to watch on Sunday if you're a football fan. Two good teams going at it. 4-game winning streak or 5-game winning streak, I believe, for New England. So, Mark, who do you got and why?
I actually think I like New England in this one. New England's been playing great football. Drake May has been playing some great football. I know the Bucks desperately needed that bye, but they're still injury ridden on offense. And meanwhile, the Patriots should be getting Ramondre Stevenson back.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Drake May has just been humming all year long. I think the Pats win this one. They're playing great football under Mike Vrabel, and they look like they're destined for some good years to come all over again. The Patriots fatigue might be on its way back.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I This is interesting. This could go either way. Two decent defenses. I don't know. Vrabel's got the kids moving. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go upset. I'm gonna go Patriots. I like the Patriots in this one. I just think they're gonna come out. I think they have the slightly better defense in this one, so I like the Patriots. Drake May's gonna keep running the ball, and they got a good running game. We still don't know what's going on with Trevion Henderson. That's very interesting to see. He didn't really play, especially with the backup yesterday or on Sunday. So I don't know is he not having good practices? I don't know. Is he not some going on Vrabel doesn't like? And we would know. We would trust Vrabel because Vrabel's a good football coach. He knows what he's doing. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. All right, we're gonna move on to what was the other? I know the other three. We had one more. I don't think I forgot. I don't have my list with me because I moved spots, but I know the three we have. What was the fourth one?
Well, originally we were talking Lions Commanders. However, at this point in time, um,
That game
Jaden
means yeah,
Daniels, his gruesome injury kind of does kill that one a little bit. I think the Lions obviously bounce back. I think Kyle's probably in agreement there.
yeah,
Um, but with the Commanders out Daniels all over again, I think at this point in time the Commanders are probably looking forward to next year getting Daniels healthy and
yep,
trying to figure that out, especially with McLaurin having injury concerns and Debo Samuel in and out of the lineup. I think the Lions
yep.
probably roll on that one, and there's not much to talk about there.
No, yeah, Lions should roll. The defense should maybe have a get right game, so that should be interesting. We're gonna go NFC West quickly. Rams, 49ers. This is kind of in control for the NFC West, or to be in somewhat of control of the NFC West. Mark, I'm going Rams. I just think San Fran. I mean, they won. They won last on Sunday against the Giants, but I just think the Rams. They're right there, dude. The Rams are right there. They're playing good ball. McVay's got them going. The coaching tree, as we talked about. I like the as long as Puka stays and Adams and their offense stays healthy. I think the Rams, and I think San Francisco's offense with their injuries have a hard time catching up. Or have a hard time catching up. So I'm going Rams.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going Rams as well, especially if Puka plays again this week. I know he is questionable at the time of this recording, but I mean, as far as the Rams go, their offense is humming. You got Nakua, you got Devontae Adams, you got Kyron Williams in the backfield. They're playing good defense, and Stafford is still slinging the ball just like he did when he won the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
just like he did when he was in Detroit. I mean, he's throwing no look 60-yard touchdown passes. Um, like it's nothing. I think also Stafford knows that. I do think personally, and this is a hot take that we might need to debate for another day. But as far as Matthew Stafford goes, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback that I think knows that he's got about another year. Like this might be his last year to really get that second Super Bowl. I think he wants it. I think he's playing for it, and I like the Rams pretty easily here.
Yeah, I like the Rams pretty. I think the offense gonna have a hard time San Fran catching up. They still don't know who's going to start at quarterback. It's going to be Mac Jones, going to be Brock Purdy, so we're going to go Rams there. Sunday night, Steelers Chargers. Very interesting game for both teams. Both teams coming off a win. Both teams. This is kind of like a playoffs. Playoff. What is it called? Playoff seeding game for tiebreakers down the road. Mark, who do you got? Oh,
Are we So there goes Cuz Wi-Fi. I'm gonna assume that we were going Steelers Chargers on this one. While the Steelers had a bit of a get right game, especially when it comes to their defense,
mm-mm.
um, I
Let's
like the way the Chargers
do.
are playing football.
Uh-uh.
I like the way that Justin Herbert is throwing the ball. I do know that they have a bit of a lack when it comes to the running game, but week in and week out, I don't know that the Steelers can maintain that level of defense. It will be interesting to see though, however, because the stud tackle for the Chargers, Joe Alt, does have a knee injury, and that could play a big part in the Chargers, especially when it comes to pass pro and things like that. But um, I like Jim Harbaugh as a coach, especially in the NFL. I like the way this Chargers offense plays football. They play hard. They play fast. You got McConkey. Quentin Johnston is coming into his own a little bit. You still got a couple other weapons there. I think I like the Chargers on that one, but I do think it's close. I just think that the Steelers defense probably takes a step back as um as it looks to me. Um, as far as that goes, just based off of the fact again that I don't think week in and week out they can sustain having to win with five different turnovers in a game. That's a very tough way to win a ball game, um, especially when you've only had that really 1 week. Not to mention the fact that their offense still needs to compete with the Chargers offense, and that's not always an easy thing to do, especially if Herbert comes in and starts the game hot. I think the Steelers are in for it, and I do like the Chargers in that one as far as that is concerned. And I know the last game that we have is the Eagles and the Packers. Eagles coming off of a bye week. Packers coming off of a hard loss against Carolina. Um, Packers lose obviously Tucker Kraft, their tight end for the season with a torn ACL. But Packers defense still seems to be intact. Still seems to be playing good football as they gave up less than 20 points again last week. Eagles defense is a bit shaky. However, they did just trade for an additional pass rusher, Jalen Phillips, and whatnot. So we'll see how that plays into some things here down the stretch. I think when it comes to this, we're probably looking at a shootout here with Philly and Green Bay. I do like Philly. I think Philly has more weapons, and I think that bye week does come into play and help them quite a bit based off of the fact that they may be looking to get Barkley going, as well as throw the football around as people have had success against the Packers throwing the football around. However, it's going to be a tale of which defense can make more stops, especially when it comes to the Eagles, as they have not played the best defense in the world, and definitely not the defense that we've been used to them playing. But neither of the Packers either. While they're playing relatively good defense. They're not necessarily shutting teams out. They do have the ability to close a game out with simply their defense alone. However, when it comes to the Packers, they've been kind of hit or miss. They've had their blunder games, and I think the Eagles are just too powerful on the offensive side on the ball to keep up, and it seemed to be that way for a couple of weeks now. When it comes to the Eagles, if they can continue to keep everything moving together and going well. I think the Eagles win this one against the Packers. The Packers probably drop two straight here as they try to keep it all together to win that division um, for themselves there. It'll be very interesting again, like I said, to see as things pretty much start to go into the playoff push. A lot of these wins are going to mean a lot more each and every week when it comes to certain teams, playoff seeding, as well as division seeding and things like that. Just based off of the fact, again, that um, there are conference games and things of that nature. We're getting into a really good time of football where there's college football, everybody fighting for playoff spots, rivalry spots, et cetera, bowl game spots, and then you have the NFL with late pushes, late surges to get to the NFL playoffs and have a chance to work towards a Super Bowl run. Again, kind of like Kyle mentioned, it is going to be a tale of who can pretty much stay the healthiest with their star players enough to make said run when it all comes down to it, because of the simple fact that there are just so many injuries. It is a violent game. And you see it week in, week out. There's guys going down for the season. There's big players going on IR, um, back and forth. And while we don't want to see it, unfortunately, it is the nature of the beast here for the NFL, and it is a hard one to navigate for really any team, but especially these upper echelon teams that are in these win it now years, these prove it years, um, et cetera, et cetera. So while we wait for Kyle to get back, hopefully he's able to jump back on soon. We are going to touch base on our overtime edition. Again, those are going to be between the 4 o'clock games ending and Sunday night football starting. Um, that will be us kind of just breaking some things down that we've seen for the weekend, and things of that nature. Kind of reacting to some things live, and you guys will get our thoughts and opinions on some things like that, just with how everything is going. The news is ramping up in the NFL, the news is ramping up in college. You have um, playoff spots, playoff seeding for both the college and the NFL, um, working in, and there's only more that we can talk about each and every week when it comes to the final whistle and things like that. For with that being said, Kyle is having some internet problems. I am Mark. He was Kyle. We appreciate you all. Comment, subscribe. Let us know how you like our takes. Let us know what you want to hear about. And again, for Kyle, I am Mark, and thank you for listening to the final whistle. Have a great week, everyone.